Welcome back to the Driven Leadership Podcast, everybody. Today we are back on Reddit, digging through the sludge of internet content to bring you the most forefront examples of leadership and give you expert advice on navigating your severest challenges.
The forefront is Reddit. All right, let's do this. And it's definitely entertaining. I feel like this is like, I learned something, but I get entertained a little bit. I think that's the goal here.
If this is your first episode, welcome. Really set us up to be experts in this. But the premise is that we go into the subreddit of leadership. It is r/leadership. I find posts that real people supposedly have made to get advice, and so I bring them up to Eric. Eric has not seen these. He is not familiar with any context, just what I read, and we give advice and suggestions based on years of leadership experience. So is that a fair summation of this format?
I don't know. I never know what you're going to pull out, but half the time I'm like, man, what guy for most of these Reddits to get to where the Reddit is, the amount of problems that were like flashing everywhere prior, but we shall see. We'll see what's up.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it. I'm excited for this first one. The title here is, first of all, the usernames are, it's from unsaid_AD 2023.
Okay. Unsaid.
That's useful. So the title here is How to Lead a Meeting with an Argumentative Person.
Oh, okay. That's a good one, actually.
They say, hi, I am leading some meetings and a lot of details were sent out many months earlier to the team, including some external collaborators. My manager is on the team. He recently started this new behavior where he gets argumentative quite a bit. Sorry, I'm going through some typos and grammar issues.
Yep.
All of this done without any disrespect. However, this repeated behavior is getting very annoying. Here are some examples. A, introduces hypothetical situations that are out of the scope. Imagine building a road in a neighborhood and asking if it can take the load of a 747. B, he claims he doesn't understand something. After a month of discussing back and forth, he brings up the same objections as the previous meeting after we have discussed and put things to rest. Luckily, I have many notes and emails that I can send to him. Last example, he doesn't come prepared to the meeting and keeps hogging the time when we have external team members. A lot of time spent is explaining things to him. So they say he dominates the meeting. A couple of times I took time to prepare additional documentation, set up a separate meeting, and showed why some of his points are out of scope. And he does the same thing over and over again. I feel that he is being unreasonable and disruptive.
Yeah.
How do you handle this type of person?
So I feel like these, I'm gonna give the short answer, but then go after what I'd say is the root issue or the bigger issue. So the short and simple answer is you've got to go talk to the guy one-on-one, and you have the conversations outside the meeting. Yeah. But the reality is either that's not happening or it's not effective because the relationship between them is not in a space where that's and potentially even culturally within the work environment, it's not acceptable to go there. So if I'm an employee and I find myself with a manager who is not willing to change behavior or listen or do any of those things, I now stop talking about what I need, the behavior that I need changed, and I start talking about how we communicate. And so it is, so you and I, so the obvious answer is you got to go talk to them. Okay. So
which it sounds like now they have a couple times.
Yeah, but they're not getting a change in behavior. So now we got to talk about how we're talking to each other. So it's like, see, you keep going back to the well. You don't go back and go, hey, during the meetings, you're not prepared. You're not this and you're not that. And I'm looking for that behavior to change. And by the way, this is where it gets extra complicated is because we're dealing with it managing up. Yeah. So we don't know. So we got egos involved. We've got positions of power. We've got, entitlement. We've got all these things that can show up as well. So it makes it a complex conversation. But to me, I go back to, okay, I'm not getting anywhere with this. I've given some feedback and I've done some things with it. So now I go, hey, Connor, manager guy, can we talk about how I could do better at getting results with the feedback for you? You know, and so I'm asking you to give me, can you help me unlock this? Because I'm obviously doing it wrong.
Get them to contribute to the solution.
Yeah, and we start collaborating on how to get this. And I don't come at them like you're a failure, you're doing this wrong, you're doing all that. I come at them and go, hey, all right, I noticed anything positive that's going on. I noticed this and I noticed this. And I think I'm not doing a good job communicating or making sure that I'm getting kind of what I'm noticing. And I want to get on the same page, but I need your help with it. And we're asking for help. We're asking for communication. We're asking for them to solve my problem in that meeting versus me solve that problem for you. And so it just gets received so much easier. So if I sit down with you, my manager, Connor, and I sit down with you and I go, hey, you over talking that meeting. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. And I even say that in a better way than I'm doing right now.
Sure.
And I'm not getting results. The next tactic is talk about the communication and help me solve this. So I notice in there, we're not getting the results. How would you solve this different? How could I do this different? You know, those type of things. And you may get a response of going, I feel like I changed it completely. So we got unaware.
Yeah.
So we've got, and most likely aware, and I don't really give a crap. Okay. It's like, that's just the way it is. And so if it's just the way it is, now you're left with, you're either tolerating going around them, or you are leaving. That's what you're left with, right? If the behavior is that big of a deal. The last thing I'd say you could throw in, you can also go to, if you've got somebody that you value their opinion and know the culture really well, that's also, it's not going to be gossip. You could literally go ask them and go, hey, I'm dealing with this. I don't see it as a bad thing, but I'm wanting to shift it based on the culture and the way it is. How would you go about it? And if you have a mentor like that internally, then that could be really helpful as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it definitely sounds like, as I read through the last bit of it, like they're taking the time to prepare additional things, set up a separate meeting. But if you're not addressing hey, this is what it feels like you're doing and getting to the root of it, instead, like it seems like there's just I'm doing everything I can to subvert those issues. Right. I'm giving him additional information. I'm explaining why his points are out of scope. But if you're not doing like what you're saying, where you sit down and be like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Let's figure out how to have these meetings be a lot more productive. That's a lot different conversation.
So you sit down with your manager and you go, hey, I'm noticing all these things, and you give the feedback. My belief, even though they said they're sitting down with them, they're not really giving them the feedback. They're kind of fluffing around it.
Yeah.
And so it's behavior, impact, suggestion. Hey, I'm noticing in the meetings, the behavior I'm noticing is you're kind of dominating the meetings and what's taking place. And I know that you have a lot of great information, so I appreciate what you're doing. Is there the impact of that is by you dominating, a lot of us aren't sharing the information. We're getting off topic. We're missing the scope of what's taking place. Yeah. And I don't know if you're noticing that or not. However, if you are, I'd like to figure out how we can get there. But ultimately, if there's any way you could just say the important stuff, but trim it down, that would be really effective. So it's behavior, impact, suggestion. We're in, we're out, we're getting on the same page. It's conversational. But my guess is that meeting's not happening like that. Right. What's happening is that we're sitting down and we're going, hey, Connor, I really appreciate the meetings. I'm doing extra work to be planned and prepared. How do you think they're going? Well, I think they're going great. We're knocking it out. I've noticed a few times that we're getting a little off scope. Have you noticed that? Yeah, I have. We should do something about that. Yeah, probably should. And they're like thinking you're talking about somebody else in the meeting. They're not, like, it's all this kind of beat around the bush. I'm not really talking to you about stuff.
Yeah.
But if I have a manager, now we get into, I have a manager that I don't have a relationship with that I feel I can do this. That's why I'm saying you get into the conversation. You go, I've got feedback that I believe could help all of us be more effective, more efficient, but I'm hesitant to give it because I feel like I don't want to come through in some negative way. How do I do that with you?
Yeah. And also I would be cautious of and I don't even know, but it's like not validating the out of scope questions. If you're having a sit down meeting to explain why some of the points are out of scope, instead of just being like, hey, we don't need to talk about why a 747 can handle this road. It's a subdivision.
But okay, so you're in a meeting and he's talking, if it's literally that abstract and way over here, or she, I think it was a he, but
I did.
And you're over there and you're in a meeting and no one feels safe enough to say, hey, manager guy,
that's a stupid question.
What the hell are you talking about? Then we gotta get into the environment. And people go, well, I'm not leading it, so I can't do it. Yeah, that's bullshit. Okay. I'm in an ineffective meeting. I am going to someone and I'm going, hey, I've got ideas how to make this more effective. How do I give that feedback? How do we work through it? And if you're in cultures where it's like, well, you can keep it to yourself and shut up and we don't want to hear from you, just know that's what you're in. It's not a psychologically safe environment. You're not going to be able to influence change. You're not going to be able to do that stuff. So it's possible that it's that way, but that's usually not how it is. Usually you might have somebody with an ego and they're hard to work with and they're all that. But there's most people, if you go, hey, I got some good ideas, I think they could help. How do I do that? They're going to go, man, give it to me. I'd love to hear. Yeah. So
it's an interesting one. The out of scope questions crack me up, just because I've never worked in like a really like corporate environment to where I wasn't able to just say like, what? No, we're not talking about that.
We've had a chance to work with some really huge companies, and I don't want to get into names because I'm going to connect some stories to what you're saying, but it is the politics, especially the higher up you go in the organization. Yeah. It's more like Game of Thrones. I mean, it really, like, that's it. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones, I mean, there's a lot of political and intrigue and just backstabbing and God knows what that's going on. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be pure cutthroat, but how I say something to who I say something, when I say something has way more meaning than whatever we're saying. Right. And so you got to be aware of that. Yeah. And that makes it tough in those big companies. Yeah. On the other side, you still kind of, what you do is you start building this cohort of people that you can really talk to at all different levels in the court organization.
Especially those who you're immediately surrounded with outside of a random one-off. Like, this is your direct manager. It's worth figuring out what that working relationship looks like and ironing out those details so that you can work effectively together. Yeah.
I was going to give stories there, but I'm not. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's
getting some trouble there.
All right. Well, solved.
We'll go with solved.
Problem solved. Second one comes from LPJCB. And they say, how do you balance servant leadership practices with effectively managing your time to accomplish corporate level goals? What a title. Okay. This one, I know I'm excited to hear where you go for this one. Okay. All right. So they explain, I had 47 meetings this week. I was double booked 6 times, triple booked 3 times. I really aim to support my team and direct reports by being present, so I'm clued in to status, risks, and issues so I can guide and support them through the challenges and mitigate risks. I aim to be, is this like ChatGPT writing this? It says, I aim to be present. They have a fully remote team, to maintain positive morale, our team culture, and to observe our mid-level managers with their teams. I'm at a director level, so I also need to be working closely with execs, prioritizing clients, scheduled and ad hoc meetings, giving demos to potential new clients, and delivering BD materials. I am failing and burning out trying to manage what can feel like these oppositional career strategies. It's gotten to the point of chaos and being in reaction mode unless I work 10 hours a day, which I have been doing for the past 6 weeks. How do you toe this line to support and be present for your team while also prioritizing your business development strategy tasks?
It's a big one. Middle management sucks.
Yeah. All right.
I mean,
next. That one's solved.
No, so because it'll show up a little different in every company, every culture, but what they're expressing there is they're using servant leadership. Be there with the people, connect to them, be of service. They have obstacles, help them remove them. Be that type of leader. But we've got to drive an agenda that I'm not in control of. It's coming down the pipe, and I've got to get this done. And
it sounds like that clash of you've been the manager for the people up until this point, and now there's that top level pressure coming in, and it's managing, like, how do I keep these things that I know make me a successful manager, but because they don't say how long they've been in this role or anything, but that's what it kind of sounds like, where it's like, now I'm in this spin cycle and I don't know how to keep up with what I know is effective.
Yeah. So the reality is how you've gone to solve a problem as a mid-level manager is typically good mid-level managers are doing it through time versus quality.
What do you mean?
So like I don't know, let's say we're at a hotel and I'm the manager of the front desk. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm at the front desk and I'm working with them day in and day out. And we have these relationships just from working together. We sit down on breaks together. We're talking. There's just a lot of time to be able to just be together and connect. And so when they got problems, I'm there. I'm Johnny on the spot. I'm making it happen. I'm kind of in that place. So as you elevate in an organization, your tasks become more. You've got different agendas and different things you have to prioritize, and the decision-making changes. And what most people do is they go, oh, I don't have time for the servant leadership stuff, for the connecting with people. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make sure I hit these priorities so I keep elevating in an organization. And so we lose the connection with people. Yeah. And so it's actually just a new skill. It's not sitting down and just hanging out nonstop and we're besties, even though I'm your manager. Mm-hmm. It is the time we're spending together is leveraged. So we are accomplishing these goals together and we're going to do it. We're like, you do both at the same time is another way to say it. Okay. Yeah. And then you also delegate more and they come back and report in your connection points on how you solve the problems on the things they're taking over.
Yeah.
So it's, this person is a director level. So director level, they have, more people overall underneath them. They have hopefully just a few direct reports. Those direct reports are where you spend the time and you're making sure you're spending more energy and time with those direct reports. And their job is to cascade down and work with the people below. If all those things are going on and you're still completely overwhelmed and you're not getting it done, how can they step in and take some of those things off your plate? If that's not happening, how do I take all these things that are taking all my time, bring my team into it so we're doing it together so that we're now getting the time and energy? And I know they use servant leadership, and so I'm not sure exactly what frame of servant leadership they're talking about there, but I put that as being of service to my people.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean doing and fixing all the problems for my people. So being of service and it's a lot more coaching. It's a lot more working with them, not necessarily time in there. They walk in your office and they go, okay, I got 3 things that came out of that project we were doing last week. I need some help with it. We sit down, we've got trust. I've put the time in already. It sounds like they've got the trust. So now we're moving to operational efficiency, getting it done. Yeah. Sounds easy. I mean, literally, if I spell it out that way, it sounds easy. It's not. And sometimes it's impossible. And sometimes you go, my team needs me and I've been absent because I'm getting all these things done. And you got to prioritize for that day, that week, that month, and put them first. But typically what's going to happen in an organization, the initiatives, the goals, the priorities, the push from above is going to win. So how do you leverage the relationships to change what they look like and still be highly connected to them is a better question than how do I stay a servant? How do I not change anything and deal with these extra priorities? Yeah. You got to take something off your plate to put it on your plate.
So you're saying letting the like if there's a project meeting, so to speak, about initiatives or business development strategy tasks, as they say, letting those meetings, like letting there be a point of connection within those meetings and not necessarily stressing about having a 30-minute one-on-one with every member of the team to check off the box of like, okay, personally developed. You're saying incorporate and ingrain that into the day-to-day management of your team?
Yeah, I'm using abstract examples because I don't know this specific person. But what you're looking for is how to do quality leadership while, and when I say quality versus quantity leadership, okay, so okay, so we don't have as much time. We've got to free up time to get certain priorities and initiatives done at this director level. There's a whole bunch that's taking them over, right? So they're having to work 10-hour days, which I got to tell you, at a director level in an organization, okay, I'm not 10-hour day does not, I'm not saying you make it a goal, but there's going to be some 10-hour days.
That something's like really wrong yet.
Yeah. You know, flip this, run a small business. You know, Mary and I were talking last week, and I mean, we had several 15-hour days. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to go, woe is me. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going expectation at a director level in an organization. I'm not expecting them to work 10 hours, but I am expecting them to work 10 hours till they figure out how to build the efficiencies into their schedule to get it down to 8 hours. Not that it should just naturally not be 10 hours.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's skills to learn. But what I am getting at is where can we leverage? Where can we leverage time? So I want to help coach and lead and develop you. Great. How can I bring you into this meeting that I'm also triple booked on to help navigate that? There's also clearly a system issue if you're able to get triple booked.
That was my immediate thought, was who is managing this person's schedule, and what software even allows for that. I don't like, usually it's alarms go off if you put something, but
well, so my guess is that larger companies, the way this will work is, so you and I schedule a meeting, and then my boss goes, I got a meeting, I can invite all these people to, and then they send out an invite. They don't look at the 10 people, 20 people they invited to the meeting. They just overbook them. And then their boss books another one over the top of it. And so now you're left with, I've got 3 meetings at the same time, and the big boss is probably the one that wins, but that's the least important one that I'm at.
Right.
And now you're forced to scramble with the ones that you find more important that are at a lower level, and I've got to work with it. So and you got to get good at prioritization. You have to have good lines of communication and talking with people and going, hey, I can't make your meeting, I'm on this one. But at the end of the day, to me, this type of scenario happens all the time in middle management. 10 hours isn't crazy. I'm not saying you have to be there. And then your key is leverage. Different way of saying this, or and. Okay. So what most people do is they come out and they go, I can either do this or this. And quite frankly, if you got meetings booked at the same time, it is an or. I get that. You can't be in 2 places at the same time unless you got an AI agent, and then you could send them to a meeting.
I'm send my chat bot to this meeting.
But the AI agents are leverage. It is.
Oh yeah.
So you're like,
just do all your one-on-ones, build a chat bot that acts as yourself, and then let your direct reports talk to the chat bot.
we
for
had
personal development. That's wild. That's a wild thought.
So we had a gentleman going off to Bold, and before they go off to Bold, we just have them do an introduction via email, right? It's like their name, who they are, what they want to get out of the class, and just a little background on them, and the introduction. And it's usually, it's a solid couple paragraphs of this is who I am, this is what's going on. Yeah. And we have this guy, and he gets into class, and I wasn't trained. Mary's back doing Bold by herself, so this was the first one she was back doing it. And this guy gets in there, and apparently he has built an AI agent that is answering all his emails, and his AI agent answered who he was. And it was a couple paragraphs. It's like, hey, I'm this person, and I'm from here, and I've got these kids, I'm into surfing, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm really hoping to get out of this class better, blah, 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 blah. Like, it was, nobody knew. He gets in the class. He's like, what email are y'all talking about? He's like,
Oh my
oh, my AI agent did
gosh.
that. I didn't even know about it. Yeah. So it's heading there, man. I'm just saying it is a
That's
thing.
wild.
Yeah. But
Well,
anyway, going back to this situation is
yeah.
how do you leverage? How do you do both? How do you do the and? How do I do servant leadership, coach, and work and still hit my initiative, still hit the overwhelming arcing things that are going on? Where can I delegate? Sure. But where can I bring people in, collaborate? How do I get them more efficient at what they're doing? So when they come in, we're building quality time together and if we're talking about just trimming down 2 hours, I believe it's completely possible. If you're talking about you go home after 15 hours of work and you're nowhere close to catching up and you're constantly behind the curve, then that's more than a skill set. That's a workload. And that's when you start getting into it's impossible.
Yeah. I think a big point to reemphasize is recalibrating for yourself who you're putting time into. If you're at a director level, you're going to have to have at least some direct report, like 2 or 3, like you were saying, the managers that are right below you. Those are the people that need to be top of the priority list, and the people below them, by all means, they are not unimportant. But if you're reprioritizing, then developing those managers right below you is where the effort needs to be majorly. And also, I mean, delegate some stuff. A director level giving demos to clients doesn't fully match with me as far as a responsibility.
But that may be culturally, that may be what happens at the director level. Who knows?
Exactly. So that may be things that's like a lot harder to change, but easy changes where you're putting your developmental time in for folks if you're looking to slim it down.
Last thing I'll say on this, I guess, is I'm going to give the standard leadership trainer answer. Go get an Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah.
And okay. And you can look that up online, Eisenhower matrix, and it is 4 boxes and you just categorize all your tasks and what's going on. You get rid of the 4th box. It's like urgent and important. And you're evaluating these. The stuff that's throwing you into the urgent and important, those are really your emergencies, top end stuff. You got to get them done now. The stuff that you deem is important, but it's not urgent, you delegate. And if it can be delegated, some of those things can't. And then the things that are, doesn't matter. Look at Eisenhower matrix. You can go through it, but it is a simple way to time manage and kind of get some organization around it. My bet is there's some things in there that are not being managed well in time, and you got to get control of your schedule better. And if you can't, then go ask somebody in the company that's doing it well. How are you managing this? Yeah. What are you doing? It's always a go-to. There's going to be these crazy people in the organization. They've been there 20 years, and you go, how do you do this? And they go, here's your answer.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, I just blow off Bob's meetings because he sucks. So we just don't go to them.
I will say, they mentioned they're in a remote team environment. That is an uphill battle, always will be. But it really sounds like you're in a good position as a leader. You're concerned about staying connected with your team. That's something that's hard to teach. Figuring out productivity and prioritizing time, that can be learned and adjusted, but you're in a good spot if you care about your people enough to be like, I need help. And good God, get control over your schedule. Triple booked is crazy. All right. Moving on here. This, I think, slightly ties into the first one. It comes from Complete Strike 3028.
Union worker.
They say, what'd you say?
I said union worker. Complete Strike.
Yeah. They say the title is Leading Leaders versus Employees. So they say, I've just started a new position as a senior leader with 4 direct reports who each have their own direct reports. For context, I've been in leadership prior to this with a team of 6 non-management employees. I've generally always had positive feedback on a range of leadership capabilities and have previously invested in training courses. The team is newly created after a recent restructure, lots to work through in relation to strategic alignment and ways of working. Keen to hit the ground running here and develop the team into a good place. Question, what have you found to be the biggest difference between leading other leaders versus employees? Anything you wish you knew sooner?
Yeah, the terminology throws me a little because first and foremost, a leader. So she's talking about title. She's talking about people that have people underneath them that are reporting to her, because all leading is influencing others. So we all do that in one way or another.
Sure.
So when you have somebody, so this director, then middle manager, then people that are down below, concept is, gosh, it's simple answer is it gets very tactical. We need to accomplish these things, task oriented when you're managing the front line. We got to get these things done. Here's what's coming up on your next shift. Here's the things we got to execute. Keep those in mind. We're working on customer service over here. Like we're
There's
constantly
easy
keeping
benchmarks to look at.
Well, yeah, and we're just keeping it in front of them, and we're going, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's what's going on. So when you elevate past that, now you're coaching them on how to coach others, and you're working on their behavior and how they influence. So you just become more of a coach when it comes to leading those people, and more of a collaborator in their execution and their success, while at the same time theirs becomes less about doing and more about making sure we're clear on the vision, where we're going, how are we going to land, what are the check-in points, what are the KPIs, we're doing all that stuff. So the interesting enough, if the really great leaders, the higher you get, the more you have to lead through data. And the less you can, like, it's not that you can't connect with people, but I mean, I remember we were working with a large casino down in Southern California. Okay. And they wanted to do a full cultural shift is what they were going for. Okay. And so what they classified a cultural shift as being, it really was a more engaged place. They felt like there was lack of engagement everywhere. People would just sit in the cage and just stare off into space. Somebody would walk up, they'd do their job. They weren't connected. There were no ideas. People weren't overly excited. And I was like, okay, so we started with just kind of an evaluation. And the way we did that is we actually sat with and watched and interviewed their leadership team all the way down. Not everybody. There was like 5,000 employees, not everybody in the organization. Sure. But we did it through certain change to just kind of get a feel of what was going on. And the crazy thing, and Gallup's work supports this, when you're talking about engagement in an organization, it's the management that has the biggest influence on that. And so they wanted their entire culture to change. So the simple way that works is the top of the company's got to change. Yep. But that's not where they were. They were like, we got to get all these people to change. We're epic. We're amazing. We're fantastic leaders. Look at the numbers we hit. They had in North America, they had the best slot floor. They made more money on slots than any other casino in all of North America. And it was a lot. I mean, it was I don't remember the numbers, but it was crazy numbers.
Yeah.
But their leadership team behaviorally were absolutely terrible. They did not coach and lead. They looked at the numbers. They didn't bring in the human factor, all those things. So bottom line to the answer is, are you the best version of you? What are you doing to grow and advance yourself in the ability to understand, comprehend, yes, the numbers of the business, but then humanize it, coach and connect with the people below you. And then, so the biggest transition is, can I coach and develop and do that better with less touch? It kind of feeds into the one we're talking about before. Less touch points,
I would say
less time to do it.
The data, if I could bring EOS into this, the data component with leading other leaders, managing managers, however you want to put it, becomes, because like you were saying, if you're a warehouse manager, the data that you're looking at for success versus failure is very cut and dry. We have inventory, we have safety, we have XYZ. Your team members know what's going on. But then if you look above that, what are the numbers that your warehouse manager is reporting back to the upper leadership? It may be those numbers, it may be the same, but as that senior leader, you have to identify, along with the warehouse manager or whoever else it is, what is the data that we can look at week to week that communicates between you and I that we're doing well, we're not doing well. We have improvements. What are the things that we can adjust? That's where I've seen kind of like the shift between, because as a senior leader leading a manager, you can get into this slog of, well, they're doing their job. I don't know what else. I don't know where else to guide them. And that's where that data component really becomes essential, because then you're looking at real numbers. And then if you're coaching and leading and developing alongside that, that's where the magic really starts to happen, and it can really drive momentum with them.
I love what you just said, and that still connecting to the EOS. If you're doing L10s with your people and you get in there and you're actually, it's called IDSing for those that don't know, but you're just problem solving in a collaborative way with your group. Man, it is, you talk about places to coach. You can get in there. You get to see them live. You get to work with them. You get to develop them. And yes, if we're working from the same and real data and we're going consistently, it's to me, it's not the crazy shift is not going from manager to, so now you're leading other leaders. Maybe that is there is a shift in there, no question, but it's not the crazy shift. The crazy shift is when you go from that spot and now you're vice president or COO of a company, and it's almost all data, and and you've got these big overarching problems, and it's vision focused. Where are we going to go? And you're looking you're doing all these things. It's a major shift that goes on while at the same time having direct reports and having to get them to navigate and do all of that. To me, those are the big jumps. If you're already good at coaching and working with people, I don't know that not there's not changes. I just don't see it as the huge changes.
The metrics just shift, but the mechanics of leading are the same, more or less.
Usually are. Nothing new in leadership since who is it told me that? Actually, it was a pastor who told me. He said there's nothing new in leadership since Jesus walked the earth. That's what he said. Something like that. Like, it's all in the Bible. Pay attention there. And I'm like, in some ways he's right. I mean, it's been around for a while. We just different ways to say it.
Yeah. Different levels to execute it. All right. Well, that was fun. Any other final thoughts before we sign off here?
Well, it's a good one if you got me quoting a pastor.
Well, if you have your own story that you'd like us to react to, respond to, give advice to, you can hit us up, podcast@drivenleadership.com. And if not, we'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks, Eric, for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.